Do you ever feel like life is pulling you in a million directions, leaving you exposed to dangers you can't control? What if I told you there's a hidden treasure in the Bible, a divine secret that offers unshakable protection and peace? Psalm 91 is more than a comforting collection of verses. It's a powerful covenant. And here's the twist. Most people miss the deeper layers of what it truly offers. This isn't just about knowing God's promises. It's about stepping into a sacred agreement with Him. Imagine holding a key that unlocks peace when fear grips your heart, strength when trials overwhelm you, and assurance when the future feels uncertain. This is the invitation of Psalm 91, but it's not automatic. It requires something from you. In this journey, we'll uncover what it means to live under the shadow of the Almighty, how to face life's challenges with divine strength, and why abiding in this covenant transforms everything. By the end, you won't just read Psalm 91, you'll live it, ready to discover the secret hiding in plain sight. The Bible isn't just a book of stories or guidelines, it's a roadmap to divine promises, and Psalm 91 is one of its greatest treasures. It's not simply words on a page, it's a covenant. Imagine holding an unbreakable agreement in your hands, a pact between you and the Creator of the universe. That's the depth of Psalm 91. This covenant goes beyond protection. It's an invitation to a life of purpose, safety, and peace. To understand this covenant, picture a fortress, impenetrable and mighty, where you can seek refuge. That's the essence of Psalm 91. It's a spiritual safe haven. But unlike physical walls, this protection isn't limited by time or space. It's there when you're at home, at work, or even driving through the chaos of rush hour. The covenant wraps around your life, providing unseen yet powerful defense. This divine promise isn't automatic, though. Like any covenant, it requires active participation. Think of it like a two-way street. God offers protection and guidance, but you must step into it with faith and obedience. If you've ever read a contract, you know it works both ways. Psalm 91 calls us to abide under His shadow, which means seeking Him daily, trusting His ways, and living according to His word. The beauty of this covenant is its accessibility. It doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, or what you've done. The invitation is open to everyone. A busy mom juggling her family, a student preparing for exams, or someone navigating the uncertainties of life, all can claim the promises of Psalm 91. It's not reserved for the perfect or the holy. It's a gift for those willing to take refuge in Him. One powerful example of this covenant in action can be found during times of danger or fear. Picture someone praying Psalm 91 before embarking on a long journey. That prayer isn't a ritual, it's a declaration of trust in God's promises. They're not just hoping for safety, they're invoking the divine protection promised in this covenant. It's faith in action, and it changes the atmosphere. This covenant also serves as a reminder of God's character. He isn't distant or detached. He's a loving Father who provides shelter, like an eagle covering its young under its wings. If you've ever felt the weight of life pressing down, Psalm 91 offers a glimpse of the peace and safety that comes from being in His care. It's a reminder that you're never alone, even in your darkest moments. Psalm 91 challenges us to view protection differently. It's not just about escaping harm, but about dwelling in a relationship with God. Imagine walking through a storm under the cover of a sturdy umbrella. The storm doesn't vanish, but you're shielded from its full force. That's the essence of this covenant. It doesn't promise a life free of challenges, but assures us of divine covering amid them. The covenant of Psalm 91 extends beyond physical protection. It touches every part of life, our thoughts, emotions, and spiritual well-being. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by anxiety or fear, this promise offers a profound solution. It's not just about surviving the storm. It's about thriving in the assurance that God's presence surrounds you, no matter what comes your way. One practical way to live in this covenant is to meditate on Psalm 91 daily. Don't just read it. Immerse yourself in its promises. Take a few verses and reflect on what they mean for your life. How does it change your perspective to know God commands His angels concerning you? How does it shift your actions to believe that no evil will overtake you? These are not abstract ideas, they're life-changing truths. Another practical application is praying Psalm 91 over specific situations. Are you worried about a loved one traveling? Pray these words over their journey. Facing a tough decision, declare God's wisdom and protection over your path. When you align your heart with this covenant, you invite its power into your daily life, turning ordinary moments into divine encounters. What's incredible about Psalm 91 is its timeless relevance. It's not bound to a particular era or culture. Whether you're facing the uncertainties of modern life or struggles that feel ancient, the covenant applies. The same God who offered protection to those in the past offers it to you today. His promises are eternal, unchanging, and as potent now as they were thousands of years ago. This covenant also teaches us to trust in the unseen. It's easy to rely on what we can touch or control, but Psalm 91 calls us to a higher trust. It's about believing in a God who works behind the scenes, orchestrating protection and provision in ways we may never fully understand. It's faith in its purest form, a trust that doesn't waver, even when the path ahead is unclear. Psalm 91 isn't just about receiving protection, it's about a lifestyle of faith. Living in this covenant means letting go of self-reliance and stepping into a deeper relationship with God. It's like handing over the reins of your life to someone infinitely wiser and more capable. The result, peace that surpasses understanding, even in the most chaotic circumstances. One story that illustrates this is the testimony of soldiers who carried Psalm 91 with them during wartime. Many spoke of miraculous escapes, unexplainable peace, and divine protection in the face of danger. These aren't just coincidences, they're the fruit of living in covenant with God. Their stories inspire us to trust in the same promises, no matter what battles we face. The covenant isn't just for the extraordinary moments, it's for the everyday ones too. Whether you're heading into a stressful meeting, dealing with family conflicts, or simply navigating the unpredictability of life, Psalm 91 is your anchor. It's a reminder that God's promises are for every aspect of your life, big or small. His covenant is all-encompassing. What's remarkable about Psalm 91 is its ability to meet us where we are. Whether you're strong in your faith or just beginning your spiritual journey, the covenant invites you to step closer to God. It's a journey worth taking because it leads to transformation. As you dwell in His presence, you'll discover a new level of peace, courage, and purpose. The covenant of Psalm 91 isn't static, it's alive and dynamic. It grows with you, adapting to the seasons of your life. In times of peace, it's a song of gratitude. In moments of struggle, it's a fortress. This adaptability is what makes it so powerful. It's not just a promise for one season, it's a lifelong gift. This is only the beginning of understanding the covenant of Psalm 91. As you explore its depths, you'll uncover layers of meaning and application that transform how you view life's challenges. And here's the key, it's not about avoiding difficulties, but about living victoriously through them. That's the heart of this covenant, and it's just the start of the journey. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, doesn't it? It might seem counterintuitive, but Psalm 91 doesn't promise an escape from challenges. Instead, it invites us to face them with divine assurance. It's not about being shielded from every storm, but about knowing who walks with you through it. Imagine stepping into a battlefield, not alone, but with the Creator of the universe at your side. That's the kind of confidence Psalm 91 instills. When people read Psalm 91, they often focus on its promises of protection. And yes, those promises are real. But here's the twist. The covenant doesn't eliminate adversity, it redefines it. Challenges become opportunities for God's strength to shine through our weakness. Have you ever faced a situation that felt impossible, only to come out stronger and wiser on the other side? That's the essence of this divine promise. The reality is, avoiding difficulties is impossible. Even Jesus said, "In this world you will have trouble." Psalm 91 doesn't contradict this truth, it complements it. It's like having a sturdy pair of shoes for a rocky path. You still walk the path, but with protection and purpose. Life's challenges, whether they're financial struggles, health crises, or broken relationships, aren't meant to break you. They're opportunities for growth. Consider someone battling anxiety. The promise of Psalm 91 doesn't mean anxiety disappears overnight, but it offers a foundation to stand on, a reminder that they're not alone, that God's strength is made perfect in their weakness. Practical steps, like speaking these promises aloud or journaling prayers rooted in Psalm 91, turn divine truth into a lifeline during tough times. One of the most empowering aspects of Psalm 91 is its call to courage. It reminds us that fear is not our master. Take the image of a lion and cobra in verse 13, symbols of real and metaphorical dangers. Facing them isn't about recklessness. It's about boldness in God's power. It's the confidence of a child knowing their parent is nearby, ready to step in if needed. This perspective transforms how we approach challenges. Instead of asking, "Why me?" we can start asking, "What can I learn through this?" For instance, someone who's lost a job might turn to Psalm 91 for reassurance. They're reminded that while the future feels uncertain, their provision doesn't ultimately come from an employer, but from God. This shifts their mindset from despair to trust. Facing life's challenges with Psalm 91 is also about redefining what victory looks like. Victory isn't always the absence of hardship. It's the presence of God's peace in the middle of it. Think about a person recovering from illness. They might not have instant healing, but they find hope and strength in the promise that God's angels are with them. That's a victory the world can't take away. Practical tools like memorizing parts of Psalm 91 or creating a daily habit of meditating on its promises help anchor us during life's storms. It's not just a spiritual exercise, it's a survival skill. Imagine starting each day by declaring, "You are my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust." That declaration changes the way you approach every challenge, big or small. Facing challenges also means trusting in God's timing. Have you ever prayed for a solution that didn't come as quickly as you hoped? Psalm 91 reminds us that waiting isn't wasted time, it's preparation. The verse, "He will cover you with his feathers," speaks to this. Think of a bird protecting its young, not rushing them out of the nest, but preparing them for flight. That's the kind of care God offers. When life feels overwhelming, Psalm 91 reminds us to shift our focus. Instead of being consumed by the size of the problem, we're called to remember the size of our God. This shift is practical too. It might look like taking a moment to breathe, pray, and recenter before responding to a difficult situation. It's the pause that allows God's perspective to shape our actions. One real-life example is how Psalm 91 has been used by frontline workers during global crises. From soldiers in war zones to healthcare workers in pandemics, many have carried this psalm in their hearts. They've faced unimaginable pressures but found strength in its promises. Their stories inspire us to face our own battles, no matter how small they may seem in comparison. Challenges often expose our deepest fears, but Psalm 91 offers a counter to fear: trust. It's like stepping into a dark room and flipping on a light switch. The room doesn't change, but the light reveals what was hidden. That's what happens when we confront challenges with faith. The fear shrinks and God's promises come into focus. This mindset doesn't mean we ignore reality. Psalm 91 doesn't encourage denial, but dependence. When you're facing financial struggles, it's wise to create a budget or seek financial advice. But alongside those practical steps, Psalm 91 reminds you to trust that God will provide. It's a blend of faith and action working hand in hand. The idea of dwelling in God's shadow means we're never far from His guidance. Think of it as carrying a spiritual compass. Challenges may throw you off course, but the promises of Psalm 91 help recalibrate your direction. It's about staying grounded, even when life feels uncertain. That's the power of having a divine guide. Facing challenges with the perspective of Psalm 91 turns survival into transformation. The promise isn't just to get through the storm, but to come out stronger, wiser, and closer to God. It's a process of refinement, like gold being purified in fire. The fire is intense, but the result is something precious and unbreakable. This covenant also teaches us resilience. Life's challenges aren't interruptions, they're part of the journey. Think of the eagle again, using the resistance of the wind to soar higher. Psalm 91 invites us to do the same, leaning into God's strength when the winds of life feel too strong. It's not about avoiding difficulty, but rising above it. As we navigate challenges, Psalm 91 becomes a daily anchor. It's not a one-time fix, but a lifelong guide. Each verse holds a new layer of meaning, waiting to be discovered as we grow in faith. The challenges we face today prepare us for the victories of tomorrow, and through it all, the promise remains. God's presence is with us. There's more to this covenant than meets the eye. It's not just about enduring life's trials. It's about embracing them with courage, knowing divine protection surrounds us. And as we dig deeper into the promises of Psalm 91, we'll uncover how abiding under His shadow transforms not just our circumstances, but our very souls. Now, I want to hear from you. Which part of Psalm 91 speaks to you the most? Have you ever experienced God's protection or care in a way that reminded you of the promises in this psalm? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes, your testimony could be exactly what someone else needs to hear to strengthen their faith. Don't miss this chance to inspire and connect. Let's grow together. The idea of abiding under the shadow of the Almighty is one of the most poetic yet profound promises in Psalm 91. It paints a picture of intimacy, safety, and closeness with God. Imagine being under the protective shade of a mighty tree on a scorching day. The heat is still there, but it no longer overwhelms you because you found a place of refuge. That's what dwelling under God's shadow feels like. A shield from life's harshest realities. This shadow isn't passive, it's alive with God's presence. To abide under it is to live in constant awareness of His closeness. Think about a child staying close to their parent in a crowded space. They feel secure, not because the crowd has disappeared, but because they trust the one guiding them. That's the relationship Psalm 91 invites us into, an active trust in God's protective presence. Abiding under God's shadow also implies humility. A shadow doesn't chase you, you have to step into it. This means surrendering your ego, your plans, and even your fears to Him. It's a posture of dependence, recognizing that no matter how strong or capable you think you are, true protection and peace come only from God. It's like choosing to lean on a sturdy cane rather than walking on shaky legs. Think of the shadow as a place of transformation. When you're under it, fears and doubts are exposed to the light of God's truth. It's like standing under a lamp that reveals every hidden detail. This process isn't always comfortable, but it's necessary. It's here, under the shadow, that God heals old wounds, breaks harmful patterns, and strengthens your faith. You don't leave the same way you entered. Practical ways to abide in this shadow include creating daily moments of stillness to connect with God. Whether it's 5 minutes of prayer in the morning or meditating on Psalm 91 during a lunch break, these practices help you stay aware of His presence. Imagine starting your day by saying, "Lord, I choose to dwell in your shadow today." That simple declaration can shift your mindset and prepare you to face anything. This shadow isn't a place of retreat in the sense of running away from life. Instead, it's a place of empowerment. Picture a soldier stepping into a command center before a battle. They're not hiding, they're preparing. Similarly, when you abide under God's shadow, you're equipped to face life's challenges with strength and clarity. It's not about avoiding the storm, it's about being ready to walk through it. The imagery of a shadow also speaks to proximity. You can't abide under a shadow from a distance. You have to be close to its source. This is a call to intimacy with God. It's about seeking Him not just in times of crisis, but in the mundane moments too. Think of how relationships deepen through everyday interactions. The same is true with God. The more time you spend in His presence, the stronger your connection grows. Abiding under this shadow isn't a passive act. It requires intention. It's like choosing to stand under an umbrella during rain. The umbrella doesn't chase you down, you have to position yourself under it. This means prioritizing time with God, whether through reading the Bible, worshiping, or simply sitting in silence before Him. The effort may seem small, but the rewards are immeasurable. This divine shadow also offers protection from things we can't see. Have you ever walked through a forest and felt the invisible protection of shade from the sun? In the same way, God's shadow shields us from unseen dangers. Those spiritual and emotional threats we often don't even realize are there. It's a reminder that His care goes beyond what we can perceive. The shadow is also a place of rest. Life can feel like a constant race, with no time to pause and breathe. But under God's shadow we find a sanctuary, a place where we can let go of burdens and simply be. It's like finding a quiet corner in a bustling city where the noise fades and peace takes over. This rest isn't just physical, it's a deep, soul-level restoration. The phrase abiding suggests consistency. It's not about visiting God's shadow occasionally, but dwelling there. Imagine the difference between camping in a place for a weekend and making it your home. When you choose to abide, you're committing to a lifestyle of staying close to God, no matter what comes your way. It's a decision to make His presence your dwelling place. This concept of abiding also challenges us to trust. To stay under the shadow means believing it's enough, that you don't need to run elsewhere for security or validation. It's like trusting a bridge to hold your weight as you cross a deep canyon. The bridge might sway, the wind might howl, but you keep walking because you trust its strength. That's the kind of faith Psalm 91 calls us to. Abiding under God's shadow doesn't mean life becomes easy, but it does mean life becomes purposeful. Challenges take on new meaning because you're not facing them alone. It's like climbing a steep hill with a guide who knows the way. The climb is still hard, but you're reassured by the guide's presence and expertise. That's the difference God's shadow makes. This shadow also represents God's authority. When you're under it, you're submitting to His rule and reign. It's like standing under the banner of a powerful king. That banner declares who you belong to and who fights for you. Abiding in God's shadow is an act of allegiance, a declaration that you trust His sovereignty over your life. When doubts creep in, and they will, Psalm 91 reminds us to stay under the shadow. It's tempting to step out and try to handle things on our own, but that's when we're most vulnerable. Abiding requires patience and faith, even when the answers aren't immediate. It's about believing that God's timing and plans are better than our own. Abiding also brings clarity. Have you ever noticed how shadows cast by the sun change depending on its position? God's shadow works similarly, revealing different aspects of His character depending on what we're going through. In times of fear, it offers protection. In moments of doubt, it brings reassurance. The shadow adapts to meet us where we are. The journey of abiding under God's shadow is one of continual discovery. Each day spent in His presence reveals new depths of His love, wisdom, and power. And as we grow in this relationship, we begin to see life through His perspective. The challenges remain, but so does His shadow, constant, comforting, and transformative. This divine shadow is more than just a place of safety. It's a gateway to transformation. As we continue exploring Psalm 91, we'll uncover how it strengthens us, not by removing life's struggles, but by equipping us to face them with courage and faith. There's so much more to discover about this covenant. Declaring God as your refuge in Psalm 91 isn't just a poetic expression, it's a profound act of trust. It means surrendering your sense of control and choosing to lean entirely on Him. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff, holding onto nothing but a rope anchored by God. That's the kind of trust we're talking about here. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Trusting God as your refuge requires letting go of worldly securities. Think about it. How often do we put our trust in jobs, relationships, or bank accounts? While these things aren't inherently bad, they're not the foundation we're meant to build our lives on. Psalm 91 reminds us that God, not the temporary things of this world, is our ultimate fortress. When everything else fails, He remains unshakable. This trust is a choice, and it's a daily one. Just like you choose to lock your doors at night for security, you must choose to place your faith in God every day. It might mean starting your morning by saying, "Lord, I trust you with my life today." That simple act shifts your focus from fear to faith and reminds you where your true protection lies. Strength through trust also means accepting that you don't have all the answers. Have you ever tried to solve a problem on your own, only to feel even more overwhelmed? Trusting God is like handing over the puzzle pieces to someone who already knows the final picture. It's admitting, "I can't do this on my own, but I believe you can." One powerful example of this trust is seen in people who tithe even during financial struggles. On the surface, it might seem illogical to give when money is tight, but this act demonstrates faith in God's provision. They're saying, "I trust you to take care of me even when I can't see how." And time and again, those who trust in this way testify to God's faithfulness. When you declare God as your refuge, you're also making a bold statement to the spiritual forces around you. It's like planting a flag that says, "I belong to the Almighty, and nothing can move me." This act of trust sends a message to fear, doubt, and the enemy. You are under divine protection. It's a shield that no worldly armor can match. Trust isn't just a mental exercise, it's an action. Imagine a parent teaching their child to ride a bike. The child wobbles and hesitates, but they keep pedaling because they trust the parent's steady hand guiding them. In the same way, God calls us to keep moving forward, even when the path feels unsteady, trusting that He's holding us. Sometimes, trusting God means waiting, and let's be honest, waiting is hard. It's tempting to take matters into your own hands when answers don't come quickly. But Psalm 91 reminds us that God's timing is perfect. Waiting under His refuge is like sitting in a shelter during a storm. The winds may howl, but the shelter holds firm until it's safe to step out again. This trust builds resilience. Every time you lean on God and see His faithfulness, your confidence grows. It's like building muscle through repeated exercise. At first, it might feel uncomfortable or even scary, but over time, you realize that God truly is your fortress, and you start relying on Him instinctively in every situation. Trusting God as your refuge also frees you from the burden of self-reliance. Have you ever felt the weight of trying to fix everything on your own? It's exhausting. Psalm 91 offers a better way, a refuge where you can lay down those burdens and let God carry them. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. After all, why struggle alone when the Creator of the universe offers to help? This act of trust transforms fear into peace. When you declare, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge," you're choosing faith over anxiety. It's like standing in the middle of chaos, but feeling an unexplainable calm because you know God is in control. This peace doesn't come from the absence of trouble, but from the presence of trust. One real-world application of this trust is during times of uncertainty. Think of someone facing a major life decision, choosing a career path, moving to a new city, or starting a family. Instead of being paralyzed by what-ifs, they can pray, "Lord, I trust you to guide me." This prayer doesn't magically eliminate uncertainty, but it provides the strength to take the next step. Trusting God also reshapes how you view setbacks. Instead of seeing them as failures, you begin to see them as opportunities for God to work. It's like a detour on a road trip. At first, it's frustrating, but then you realize the detour leads to a scenic route you would have missed otherwise. Trust allows you to embrace these unexpected turns with hope. When life feels overwhelming, declaring God as your refuge brings focus. It's easy to get lost in the noise of fear and doubt, but Psalm 91 calls you back to what matters, your relationship with God. Practical steps, like journaling your worries or speaking scripture aloud, help anchor your trust in Him during those moments of overwhelm. This trust also inspires boldness. Knowing God is your refuge gives you the courage to step into situations you'd normally avoid. It's like wearing armor into a battle. You're not invincible, but you're protected. Trusting God doesn't mean you'll never face challenges, but it does mean you'll face them with confidence in His strength. Trust isn't a one-time decision. It's a lifestyle. It's about consistently choosing to place your faith in God, even when the path is unclear. This might mean revisiting Psalm 91 regularly, letting its words remind you of God's promises. Over time, this habit of trust becomes second nature, shaping how you respond to every challenge. The beauty of trusting God as your refuge is that it opens the door to deeper relationship. Each step of faith draws you closer to Him, revealing more of His character and love. It's a journey of discovering that He truly is enough, no matter what life throws at you. And this trust is the foundation for experiencing the full power of His covenant. There's so much more to uncover about the strength that comes through trust. Psalm 91 doesn't just call us to believe in God's promises, it calls us to live them out. As we continue exploring this psalm, we'll see how vulnerability under His wings unlocks even greater strength. The imagery of feathers and wings in Psalm 91 is both tender and powerful. It speaks to a strength that doesn't need to dominate or intimidate. Instead, it offers protection and comfort. Picture a mother bird gently wrapping her wings around her young. Beneath that soft exterior lies an unyielding strength, ready to defend if necessary. That's the kind of shelter God provides, gentle yet invincible. Vulnerability is a concept that often gets misunderstood. In a world that celebrates independence and self-sufficiency, admitting your need for God can feel countercultural. But Psalm 91 flips this idea on its head. It shows us that true strength comes from knowing when to take refuge under God's wings. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's recognizing that some battles aren't meant to be fought alone. The feathers in Psalm 91 remind us that God's care is personal and intimate. Unlike a fortress of stone, which feels distant and impersonal, feathers symbolize warmth and closeness. Imagine leaning into a safe embrace after a long day. That's the feeling this psalm evokes. It's not just about safety, it's about being fully known and loved in the process. This vulnerability under God's wings is an act of surrender. Think about a baby bird that instinctively runs to its mother's wings at the first sign of danger. It doesn't question or hesitate. It simply trusts. That's the kind of childlike faith Psalm 91 calls us to. When life feels overwhelming, running to God isn't a last resort. It's the first and best response. Being vulnerable also means acknowledging your limitations. Have you ever felt like you needed to have it all together, only to burn out trying? Psalm 91 offers a different way. It invites you to let go of the impossible standards you place on yourself and rest in God's sufficiency. His wings are wide enough to cover your fears, failures, and uncertainties. This kind of trust requires honesty, both with God and yourself. Under His wings, there's no need to pretend or put on a brave face. You can bring your doubts, worries, and even your anger. God isn't intimidated by your humanity. In fact, He welcomes it. Vulnerability is the gateway to deeper intimacy with Him. It's where healing begins. Practical steps to embrace this vulnerability include creating space for honest prayer. Instead of reciting formal words, speak to God as if you're sharing your heart with a trusted friend. For example, you might pray, "Lord, I'm scared and unsure right now, but I'm choosing to trust you." These moments of raw honesty build a stronger connection under His wings. Another way to practice vulnerability is through journaling. Write out your fears and questions, and then write down the promises of Psalm 91 as a response. For instance, if you're afraid of failure, remind yourself of verse 4. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. This act of pairing your vulnerability with God's truth is a powerful spiritual exercise. The imagery of wings also speaks to movement. Wings aren't static, they're dynamic and strong, capable of lifting and protecting. Under God's wings, you're not stuck or stagnant. You're being prepared for something greater. Just as a baby bird eventually learns to fly, your time under His protection equips you for the challenges ahead. This hidden strength in vulnerability transforms how we face life's storms. Instead of fighting the wind, we learn to let God carry us through it. Picture an eagle soaring above a storm, using the wind's resistance to rise higher. That's what happens when we rest under God's wings. The very challenges meant to harm us become tools for growth and elevation. Psalm 91 also shows us that vulnerability doesn't mean passivity. Under God's wings, we're not hiding out of fear, but abiding out of faith. It's like a soldier retreating to a command center, not to escape the battle, but to regroup and recharge. This time of refuge strengthens us to step back into the fight with renewed courage and clarity. Being under His wings is also about community. Feathers don't exist in isolation. They're part of something larger. When you abide under God's wings, you're reminded that you're part of His family. This includes connecting with others who are also seeking refuge in Him. Sharing your journey with fellow believers fosters accountability, encouragement, and collective strength. One beautiful aspect of God's wings is their adaptability. They cover us in our weakest moments, but also challenge us to grow. Think of how a mother bird nudges her young to explore the world while still keeping them close. God's protection isn't a crutch, it's a foundation. It gives us the courage to step out, knowing He's always near. This imagery also challenges our view of what strength looks like. The world often equates strength with power or dominance, but Psalm 91 shows us a different kind of strength, one that's rooted in love and gentleness. Under His wings, we find a strength that lifts rather than crushes, that protects without overpowering. It's a strength that inspires trust. When we embrace this hidden strength, we begin to see vulnerability as a gift, not a weakness. It's in our moments of greatest need that God's power is most evident. Think about Paul's words in 2 Corinthians, "For when I am weak, then I am strong." Psalm 91 echoes this truth, reminding us that God's strength is made perfect in our vulnerability. Under His wings, there's also an element of mystery. Feathers conceal what's underneath, offering both protection and intrigue. This reminds us that we don't always need to understand how God is working. We just need to trust that He is. Like a child resting under a blanket, we find peace in the covering, even when we can't see everything clearly. This hidden strength equips us for the next phase of the journey. Vulnerability under God's wings isn't the end goal. It's a starting point. As we grow in faith and trust, we are prepared to face greater challenges with courage and resilience. Psalm 91 invites us to lean into this process. knowing that God's strength is always enough. There's so much more to explore about the protection and power found in Psalm 91. As we continue to uncover its promises, we'll see how truth itself becomes a shield, a defense against the external dangers and internal doubts that threaten to shake our faith. Stay under the wings, because the next layer of this covenant holds even more revelations. Truth, as described in Psalm 91, is more than just honesty. It's a powerful defense. The verse describes God's truth as a shield and buckler, a double layer of protection against life's attacks. Imagine standing in battle, armed not with flimsy armor, but with something solid and reliable. That's the role truth plays in the life of a believer. It's not just defensive, it's transformative. In a world full of deception, half-truths, and confusion, holding on to God's truth is like finding a lighthouse in a storm. It keeps you anchored and prevents you from being swept away by fear or doubt. Think of times when you've been overwhelmed by uncertainty. The promises in Psalm 91, grounded in truth, offer clarity and peace that no worldly assurance can provide. God's truth isn't just an abstract concept. It's practical and actionable. It's found in His Word, the Bible. By meditating on Scripture, you equip yourself with the tools to combat the lies that try to infiltrate your mind. For example, when fear whispers, "You're alone in this," Psalm 91 counters with, "He will cover you with His feathers." That's truth in action. This defense isn't just about protection from external threats. It's also about confronting the lies within. Have you ever doubted your worth or questioned your purpose? God's truth acts as a mirror, reflecting your true identity as His beloved child. It challenges the negative narratives you've believed and replaces them with His promises of love, purpose, and value. One practical way to wield this truth is through affirmations rooted in Scripture. Start your day by declaring, "God is my refuge and strength. I will not fear." When you face challenges, remind yourself of the truths in Psalm 91. Speaking these promises aloud isn't just a mental exercise, it's a spiritual weapon that strengthens your faith and deflects doubt. Truth as a defense also requires discernment. In a world overflowing with opinions and advice, it's easy to get lost in the noise. But Psalm 91 reminds us to return to the unchanging foundation of God's Word. It's like using a compass in unfamiliar territory. No matter how disoriented you feel, the truth points you back to the right path. This shield of truth is particularly powerful against fear. Fear thrives in uncertainty and deception, but truth shines a light that exposes its lies. Picture fear as a shadowy figure lurking in the dark. When you hold up the truth of Psalm 91, it's like flipping on a spotlight. The shadow retreats, and you see reality clearly. That's the power of truth. One of the most profound aspects of truth is its permanence. Human opinions and circumstances change, but God's truth remains constant. It's like building your house on solid rock rather than shifting sand. When storms come, and they will, your foundation doesn't waver. Psalm 91 serves as a reminder that truth is not only a shield, but a secure place to stand. The buckler mentioned in Psalm 91 offers a second layer of defense. While the shield protects you from direct attacks, the buckler guards your vulnerabilities. It's a smaller, closer protection, symbolizing how God's truth is tailored to your specific needs. Whether you're facing external criticism or internal doubts, His truth covers you completely. Practical steps to embrace this defense include memorizing key verses from Psalm 91. When challenges arise, these verses become your shield. For instance, when anxiety strikes, recall verse 4, His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. These words aren't just comforting, they're empowering, reminding you of the unshakable truth that God is always faithful. Truth also helps you discern between real threats and imagined ones. Have you ever worried about something, only to realize later that it wasn't as bad as you thought? God's truth cuts through the noise, helping you focus on what truly matters. It's like wearing glasses that bring everything into sharp focus. Without them, the world feels blurry and overwhelming. This defense isn't passive, it's active. Living in God's truth means choosing to align your thoughts, words, and actions with His Word. It's not just about knowing the truth, it's about walking in it. Think of it as wearing armor. It's not enough to admire the armor, you have to put it on and use it in the battles you face. Truth also acts as a boundary. It protects you from being swayed by harmful influences. Imagine a fortress surrounded by high walls. Those walls aren't there to imprison you, they're there to keep you safe. Similarly, God's truth sets boundaries that guard your heart and mind from the lies of the enemy and the distractions of the world. One way to reinforce these boundaries is by filtering what you consume, whether it's media, conversations, or even your own thoughts. Ask yourself, does this align with God's truth? If it doesn't, let it go. Instead, fill your mind with the promises of Psalm 91. It's a simple but powerful habit that strengthens your spiritual defenses. This shield of truth also builds confidence. When you know what's true, you're less likely to be swayed by fear or confusion. It's like standing firm in a storm, knowing your anchor holds. Psalm 91 reminds us that God's truth isn't just a shield for today, it's a promise for every tomorrow. That assurance changes how you face life's challenges. The truth also draws us closer to God. As you meditate on His Word and apply it to your life, you deepen your relationship with Him. It's not just about knowing facts, it's about experiencing His presence. Truth becomes more than a defense, it becomes a bridge that connects you to the heart of the Almighty. God's truth, as described in Psalm 91, is a multi-layered defense that equips us for every battle. It shields us from external threats, protects our vulnerabilities, and aligns our hearts with His promises. And as we continue to explore this covenant, we'll uncover how even the most daunting trials, represented by lions and vipers, can be overcome with His strength. Psalm 91 speaks boldly of victory, even in the face of trials symbolized by lions and vipers. These aren't just literal creatures. They represent the visible and invisible challenges we face in life. The lion symbolizes external, obvious dangers, while the viper represents hidden, subtle threats. Victory over them isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving through God's strength. Facing a lion, whether literal or metaphorical, can feel overwhelming. Its roar alone can paralyze you with fear. But Psalm 91 reminds us that these challenges are not insurmountable. Imagine standing before such a beast, yet feeling calm because you know God stands beside you. It's not courage born of your own strength, but of His promise to protect and empower you. The viper, on the other hand, represents the dangers we don't see coming, betrayals, hidden fears, or unforeseen obstacles. Its bite is swift and often unexpected. But God's promise in Psalm 91 assures us that even these subtle threats are under His control. You may not see the danger ahead, but He does, and He's already prepared a way for your victory. Victory through trials isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about overcoming them with God's help. Think about someone who's faced a health crisis. While the journey may be long and difficult, their testimony of healing and strength becomes a testament to God's faithfulness. The trial doesn't define them, the victory does. Psalm 91 equips us with this perspective. Practical ways to claim this victory include declaring God's promises over your situation. When you're facing a challenge, speak the words of Psalm 91 aloud. You will tread upon the lion and the cobra. This isn't just poetic language. It's a declaration of faith that empowers you to step boldly into battles, knowing victory is already secured in God's plan. Victory also involves preparation. A soldier doesn't step into battle unarmed, and neither should we. Meditating on Psalm 91, praying for wisdom, and seeking godly counsel are ways to arm yourself for the trials ahead. These spiritual disciplines aren't just routine, they're your strategy for overcoming the lions and vipers in your life. Sometimes, victory looks different than we expect. It's not always about defeating the enemy outright. Sometimes it's about finding peace in the middle of chaos, or discovering strength you didn't know you had. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. The lions weren't removed, but their power was neutralized. That's the kind of victory Psalm 91 promises, protection and peace, even in the midst of trials. The trials we face often reveal our hidden fears and weaknesses, but that's where God's strength shines the brightest. Psalm 91 doesn't promise a life without difficulty. It promises His presence through it all. Picture yourself walking through a dark valley, only to find a light guiding your way. That's what His protection feels like, a steady assurance that you're never alone. One of the greatest victories is triumphing over fear itself. Fear has a way of amplifying challenges, making them seem larger than they are. But Psalm 91 calls us to look beyond the roar of the lion and the venom of the viper. It's not about denying the reality of danger, but trusting in the greater reality of God's power and presence. Victory through trials also shapes our character. Every challenge we overcome strengthens our faith and resilience. Think about a tree that grows stronger because of the winds that push against it. Trials refine us, drawing us closer to God and equipping us to help others who face similar struggles. It's a ripple effect of grace and growth. Practical steps to embrace this growth include reflecting on past victories. Make a list of challenges you've faced and how God brought you through them. These reminders build confidence for future trials. When the next lion roars or viper strikes, you can look back and say, God was faithful before, and He'll be faithful again. Psalm 91 also teaches us that victory isn't always instant. Sometimes it's a process. Think of Joseph in the Bible, who endured years of hardship before seeing God's plan unfold. The lions and vipers in his life didn't disappear overnight, but every step of his journey brought him closer to victory. Trusting in God's timing is a crucial part of the process. Victory through trials isn't just about personal triumph, it's about glorifying God. When we overcome challenges, our stories become testimonies that inspire others. Think about someone who shares how Psalm 91 carried them through a difficult season. Their victory doesn't just encourage them, it strengthens the faith of everyone who hears it. One example of this is how Psalm 91 has been a source of strength for missionaries, soldiers, and even everyday believers in tough circumstances. Their reliance on God's promises demonstrates that victory isn't reserved for the extraordinary. It's available to all who trust in Him. These stories remind us that we're part of a larger narrative of God's faithfulness. This victory also teaches us humility. It's easy to take credit for overcoming challenges, but Psalm 91 reminds us that the glory belongs to God. When we tread upon lions and vipers, it's not by our might, but by His power. This perspective keeps us grounded and grateful, even in the midst of success. Victory doesn't mean life becomes easier. It means you're equipped to handle whatever comes next. The trials may not stop, but your confidence in God's protection grows with each one. It's like climbing a mountain. Each step may be difficult, but it takes you higher and strengthens your resolve. Psalm 91 assures us that victory is not only possible, but promised. As we continue to uncover the layers of this covenant, we'll see how every trial and triumph brings us closer to the fullness of God's protection and purpose. The journey doesn't end here. There's always more to discover under His wings. Psalm 91 speaks boldly of victory, even in the face of trials symbolized by lions and vipers. These aren't just literal creatures, they represent the visible and invisible challenges we face in life. The lion symbolizes external, obvious dangers, while the viper represents hidden, subtle threats. Victory over them isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving through God's strength. Facing a lion, whether literal or metaphorical, can feel overwhelming. Its roar alone can paralyze you with fear, but Psalm 91 reminds us that these challenges are not insurmountable. Imagine standing before such a beast, yet feeling calm because you know God stands beside you. It's not courage born of your own strength, but of His promise to protect and empower you. The viper, on the other hand, represents the dangers we don't see coming, betrayals, hidden fears, or unforeseen obstacles. Its bite is swift and often unexpected. But God's promise in Psalm 91 assures us that even these subtle threats are under His control. You may not see the danger ahead, but He does, and He's already prepared a way for your victory. Victory through trials isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about overcoming them with God's help. Think about someone who's faced a health crisis. While the journey may be long and difficult, their testimony of healing and strength becomes a testament to God's faithfulness. The trial doesn't define them. The victory does. Psalm 91 equips us with this perspective. Practical ways to claim this victory include declaring God's promises over your situation. When you're facing a challenge, speak the words of Psalm 91 aloud. You will tread upon the lion and the cobra. This isn't just poetic language. It's a declaration of faith that empowers you to step boldly into battles, knowing victory is already secured in God's plan. Victory also involves preparation. A soldier doesn't step into battle unarmed, and neither should we. Meditating on Psalm 91, praying for wisdom, and seeking godly counsel are ways to arm yourself for the trials ahead. These spiritual disciplines aren't just routine, they're your strategy for overcoming the lions and vipers in your life. Sometimes, victory looks different than we expect. It's not always about defeating the enemy outright. Sometimes it's about finding peace in the middle of chaos, or discovering strength you didn't know you had. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. The lions weren't removed, but their power was neutralized. That's the kind of victory Psalm 91 promises, protection and peace, even in the midst of trials. The trials we face often reveal our hidden fears and weaknesses, but that's where God's strength shines the brightest. Psalm 91 doesn't promise a life without difficulty. It promises His presence through it all. Picture yourself walking through a dark valley, only to find a light guiding your way. That's what His protection feels like, a steady assurance that you're never alone. One of the greatest victories is triumphing over fear itself. Fear has a way of amplifying challenges, making them seem larger than they are. But Psalm 91 calls us to look beyond the roar of the lion and the venom of the viper. It's not about denying the reality of danger, but trusting in the greater reality of God's power and presence. Victory through trials also shapes our character. Every challenge we overcome strengthens our faith and resilience. Think about a tree that grows stronger because of the winds that push against it. Trials refine us, drawing us closer to God and equipping us to help others who face similar struggles. It's a ripple effect of grace and growth. Practical steps to embrace this growth include reflecting on past victories. Make a list of challenges you've faced and how God brought you through them. These reminders build confidence for future trials. When the next lion roars or viper strikes, you can look back and say, God was faithful before, and He'll be faithful again. Psalm 91 also teaches us that victory isn't always instant. Sometimes it's a process. Think of Joseph in the Bible, who endured years of hardship before seeing God's plan unfold. The lions and vipers in his life didn't disappear overnight, but every step of his journey brought him closer to victory. Trusting in God's timing is a crucial part of the process. Victory through trials isn't just about personal triumph, it's about glorifying God. When we overcome challenges, our stories become testimonies that inspire others. Think about someone who shares how Psalm 91 carried them through a difficult season. Their victory doesn't just encourage them, It strengthens the faith of everyone who hears it. One example of this is how Psalm 91 has been a source of strength for missionaries, soldiers, and even everyday believers in tough circumstances. Their reliance on God's promises demonstrates that victory isn't reserved for the extraordinary. It's available to all who trust in Him. These stories remind us that we're part of a larger narrative of God's faithfulness. This victory also teaches us humility. It's easy to take credit for overcoming challenges, but Psalm 91 reminds us that the glory belongs to God. When we tread upon lions and vipers, it's not by our might, but by His power. This perspective keeps us grounded and grateful, even in the midst of success. Victory doesn't mean life becomes easier. It means you're equipped to handle whatever comes next. The trials may not stop, but your confidence in God's protection grows with each one. It's like climbing a mountain. Each step may be difficult, but it takes you higher and strengthens your resolve. Psalm 91 assures us that victory is not only possible, but promised. As we continue to uncover the layers of this covenant, we'll see how every trial and triumph brings us closer to the fullness of God's protection and purpose. The journey doesn't end here. There's always more to discover under His wings. Psalm 91 isn't just a chapter in the Bible, it's an invitation to live differently, to walk with confidence, and to stand strong no matter what life throws at you. But here's the challenge. Will you choose to apply this knowledge or let it remain as words on a page? Victory, peace, and divine protection are all within your reach, but they require your participation. What steps can you take today to abide under God's shadow? Can you start by meditating on His promises, praying over the areas where you feel most vulnerable, or even sharing Psalm 91 with someone who needs its assurance? Small actions rooted in faith create life-changing transformations. What's holding you back from experiencing this covenant fully? Is it fear, doubt, or simply the busyness of life? Take a moment to reflect, and let this be the day you choose to step under the wings of the Almighty. Remember, this isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving in the promises of God. If this journey has inspired you, don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss more teachings like this. Together, we'll continue to uncover the treasures of the Bible and walk in the power of His Word. Now it's your turn. What does Psalm 91 mean to you, and how will you live its truths starting today? Share your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear your story.